time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE on what is a frigid Thursday morning. And we welcome in Mayor Bob Morgan. We appreciate him making his way through this. It's kind of brutal today.
It is brutal. It's been brutal for a couple of days, especially in that wind. But, as I reflected on the drive in, you and me have seen a lot of cold weather over the years, and
just put up with it. You know,
you do. I think Nebraskans for the most part live a little bit longer, and I think that's because we put up with a lot of different types of weather, and this is just another one. And what I can't imagine is I guess I won't be washing my vehicle because I think by Friday, Saturday, Sunday there's going to be a lot of water running.
Yeah, that's for sure. And mine's looking a little bad right now. It's got about every known substance on it. But, if you think about Nebraska, you get how many states do you get all the way from minus 15 to 115 degrees over a year's time or something like that?
Not very many, just kind of here in the Midwest. And we also get the humidity.
True.
So, or even like today, if it gets up to 10, the temperature's moved quite a ways.
Yeah. So the question is, we ask ourselves, why did we settle here? I guess we like those extremes. So.
I think there's a lot of worse places to live than here.
That's true. Yeah. Nice, easygoing type.
That's right.
Life compared to some other areas. Well, we have quite a bit to talk about today. One of the things, maybe just touch on a little bit, their audit report for the last fiscal year ending in end of September for the City of Beatrice and Board of Public Works. Sounded like a pretty good report.
It was a good report. I think Hannah's doing a great job as our Chief Financial Officer. I think working with the city administration, and really hats off to all the department heads. I think they have done a really good job of, putting the spending where they budgeted, and so, we're in very good financial shape. That report will be posted on the website. I'm not sure when, but from a transparency standpoint, it's about 125, 130 pages, but it's got a lot of good information in there, and I think it shows that we have a very strong background or financial background, and I really think that's what you need. I mean, in this day and age, we talked a little bit about it, to get some of the equipment that we need, and that was one of the bonds that we passed. They're pricey, but yet you have to have them. And as we move forward, we want to make sure that we plan our, I guess what I call capital investments in a very logical and way that we save money. For instance, I know that, we have most of the capital investments at least laid out for 8 years. Now, years 4 through 8 are probably a little bit more nebulous than 1 through 4. But at least if we kind of know what we want, we can start looking at what the markets on new equipment are doing, what's the latest technology that's going to cut down labor costs, and a number of other of those things that we can still be able to leverage and keep our city in a strong financial position.
Vac trucks at $500,000, fire engines approaching $1 million apiece, and you wonder how cities can even afford all of that. And then you look at the larger cities whose departments may have 15 or 20 of those trucks. It's just amazing what you have to commit to get equipment like that.
Well, that and, I think one of the articles that I read in Los Angeles when they had that fire, they had a number of trucks that weren't operable. And now if you think about the trucks that got destroyed, and there's those trucks that are inoperable, now they're going to place a big order for fire engines. So now it's just a revolving cycle that will continue to drive, number one, longer time before you get your fire engine, but then cost will continue to increase.
Yeah.
So, but you have to have them. I mean, that's the one thing. I think our pumper truck is roughly 30 years old. We've talked about having the fire engine, and we do have it on order. But we're looking at, it's bounced around. I think at one point in time, we thought we were going to get the fire truck in August of 2025. Now we're looking at sometime in 2026. And so we just kind of keep hanging on, but at least our truck is in line to be built and to come to us.
Is that a product of that supply chain thing, or is it just delivery demand is such that you just can't get one right away because of that? Or?
I think it started with a supply chain. I think that started with that, and most places have worked their way out of it, but I don't think the fire engine world has. I don't think there's a lot of makers that do that, and you want to make sure that when you buy one and it's made well, that you can get 30 years out of it.
So you don't have to spend $1 million every 5 or 10 years.
That's right. Exactly.
On a vehicle. Yeah. On the audit, I was interested that you as a city put together, it's kind of a separate, well, it's based on the audit and things, but you put together a separate comprehensive financial plan, which I find kind of instructive, especially the rear part of that when you start looking at where your tax levy's gone, what's happened to valuation, things like that. And, in the report it cited, I think, past decade, it's amazing how much property valuation has changed. And yet your tax rate is essentially stable or has decreased a little bit over the years.
Right. It has. It's decreased a little bit. It's one of those things you talk about, levy and the property tax valuation go hand in hand on that. But, we try to be very responsible with our dollars. And that comprehensive book takes some time to put together. And I think, as they mentioned, there's a lot of communities that don't take that extra step. I know we've been recognized and certified every year for taking that extra step. But I think, again, it goes back to transparency about where our money's spent, and it's out there so the community can see where it is. If you don't have that, you probably could have cut that report down to about 50 pages.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's a lot of people that will find that very useful.
I don't remember what the year was, but when the city's voters first approved the local sales tax, if you go back and wouldn't have had that tax this entire time, how much more difficult would it be to operate today, given the cost of everything and just, labor costs go up and all costs keep going up? Would it be a much different scenario?
I would guess that city tax, it would be a much different scenario, yeah. And even like the additional tax that we have for the fire station. I think there's a lot of things that we've been able to do because of that little extra money within our budget. This year is going to be an interesting year. We have some bills in the legislature that may, take a little bit more money. Certainly there's a couple of, I think, fire and police talk about retirement, which they certainly deserve. So we'll look at that. And as we continue to go through that, there's also the bill that says, can't raise our budget or our tax levy by more than 2% or something. There's a cap on there. And so, it's going to be a little more difficult as we're going into our next biennium budget. So it will be a little bit of an interesting time from March until September.
It was also mentioned Monday night, possible sales tax on cryptocurrency or something like that. Or
there is. We have 2 of those in town. They're pretty mobile. That would be a state tax, and if that state tax comes through, we may or may not be able to retain our folks that have chosen us because we've got great energy prices, and they can be here, and they contribute to our community.
Big power user as far as
they are
electric too.
They're very big power users.
Yeah, so you do get some revenue from that. Which
we do.
Helps out.
Yes, we do.
Maintaining your system.
Absolutely, and I just will point out that as cold weather hit, everything's fine. We've got plenty of power that we've been able to provide the city and them. But the nice thing about them, because they are such a big power user, they understand the community, and as if the vortex that came through in 21, if we had an incident like that, they're willing to step offline for within an hour or for a day or 2 if they have to, and so that power can revert it into the residential, and that's when you think about it, that's a great opportunity for them and for us both.
Yeah. Were you fearful of the effects of another vortex? Because it's interesting, it's almost on the exact day, I think, of when it happened last time. Wasn't it February 21st of 21? Or
I think it was pretty close.
Or 22, somewhere in there. But and I know that caused a lot of cities to pay up, basically.
It did. It did. One of the things that, and I'm not, again, I've learned a lot, and I have really good people that will tell me what I need to know. But, we have our sources from different avenues, and so we don't just rely on power plant electricity. We've got the Cottonwood solar or wind farm that we get our electricity from as well. That was a really smart move, by the way, because, we've been able to see some cost savings during this very, very cold temperature by having an increase in energy from the wind farm versus maybe, coal-fired or some other form. So because we're diversified, it puts us in a really strong position to continue to, provide, at this point in time, massive power through this cold weather.
Mm-hmm. Need to take a break, but before we do, reschedule on the Safe Streets for All report that was planned to be Tuesday night, but of course from cold weather, you didn't want to make consultants drive all the way down from Omaha in that time period. So
we at least gave them their choice.
Yeah.
And they decided that it would be better to come on March 3rd. So they will be to give the city council and whoever would like to come their full report and analysis and recommendations for the Safe Streets for All grant.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, when it's that cold, there's not much public at any meeting. There generally isn't anyway, but that's another reason for people to just stay at home and be safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's you can find it on radio, TV.
That's true. Hear it on radio afterward and see it live on
that's exactly right.
TV. Okay. 8:41 our time. We'll be back with more on Ask the Mayor in just a moment. We're back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Have an open house coming up, and it's kind of one of those where people that are interested in it, you don't have to stay for the whole thing, but it's an hour-long event coming up on February 27th at the fire department, and that's for contractors on the former school sites where you're going to be building homes there.
As we start developing those two areas at Paddock and Lincoln, we are holding an open house to, first of all, model how the lots are going to be laid out. As you build those homes, you also want to make sure that you have some covenants in place so that the homes are a quality built home that fit into the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so this will give these contractors an opportunity to see what we're proposing for not only those covenants, but also how the lots lay out and try to generate interest for them to start building some houses on those lots, as well as just general feedback to make sure that we are checking the boxes and we are heading in the right direction.
Before this open house, have you had any informal questions, interests, inquiries about those sites?
We have. We've had a couple of contractors that have been interested. Mm-hmm. We're not quite ready to. We haven't even broke ground yet. But there's several that are interested to see the layout and excited about having that opportunity to build houses, in two new areas. Mm-hmm. Especially, when you look at how we laid those out, they're kind of a area neighborhood community with the cul-de-sacs and the walkways and those type of things. So it's been laid out in maybe a really logical manner, not typically just houses on a block, but also like a little bit of a community inside of a community. And I think that's going to draw a lot of interest as well.
On occasion, I get asked, when are the old school buildings coming out and the demolition and everything? Any word on that about what's the general time frame for that?
We finally got the bids back. Excuse me, we got the bids back for asbestos removal. Mm-hmm. Both buildings have asbestos, of course, particularly in the tile. Yeah. I think that's the main place of it is, but some of the other things there are too.
1955's buildings.
That's right.
That'll happen.
That's right. So, but I feel good about it. I think the bids came back, and if I'm not mistaken, the contractor price was about $60,000 for both buildings. Hmm. And there's typically asbestos grants. Most of those are, won't cover it all, maybe about $10,000. Mm-hmm. But if it's $10,000 per building, now you're down to about $40,000 to tear that out. So once we take care of all the asbestos, you'll see Lincoln and Paddock knocked down, and hopefully within the next 3 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, we would really start April, May. We really like to start laying out those two developments so we get things going.
The other site, Stoddard, which is being privately developed into
Correct.
senior apartments, there any kind of update on what's going on there?
They own it, I can tell you that. And I know they're right now going in and trying to figure out how they're going to remodel that area for senior housing, and that's going to be a nice project. And, of course, people will say, what about Cedar? And, Cedar was one that we're going to have, well, right now it's probably just going to be as it is right now and closed, because we really need to see how those two, there's a lot of land there. And we need to see how the two developments that are happening at Lincoln and Paddock, to see how we can apply maybe some of that there, or maybe there'll be a developer that would like to buy the entire area.
Yeah, that is a big lot between, Mary and Scott Street there.
Yes.
That expands outward quite a ways.
It does. It
Some
really
potential home development in the future?
Could very well be, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. The new landfill project has gotten underway right in the dead of winter.
That's right.
With the excavation. I haven't been out there. I've been meaning to just get out there, maybe hunt up Jason Moore, our landfill superintendent, and just maybe take some pictures, kind of see what's going on there. But what is the status on there right now? You had a couple of contractor payments this past.
Yes, they've been out there. They've been working. They've been getting started. It's two projects, two different construction companies. That's why you saw two payments. One is for the buildings, the scale, and those type of things, and one is just actual moving the dirt. Also putting in the liner and all the things that go along with a landfill. My understanding there's some pretty big. I haven't been out there either. My understanding there's some pretty good sized equipment out there. Yeah. As they get ready to break ground. They've done some dirt work. I can't imagine they've done a lot of dirt work in the last week or two. Yeah. But they're moving right along. Yeah.
Well,
which is good.
Warmer weather coming up. I suppose the pace of things will start up, and I think the opening of the facility in the fall sometime.
We hope to have it done by September. I think the present landfill probably has room for items October or November-ish, but we're narrowing down on when we need to close this particular landfill. The
compost site, that's going to stay in the same place, isn't it? So people that are familiar with that across the highway spur, that'll still be there.
I believe that's, I think right now the compost site will stay there, and the grass drop-off might, I would think, stay there too.
Does the old landfill building come down, or does it stay there? I wasn't sure on that.
As far as the buildings there, we'll take a look and see how good of buildings they are. If they're in good shape, we won't take them down now. I think there's some talk about maybe how we can use them. Nothing definitive at this point, but if they're in pretty good shape, the last thing we want to do is tear them down. We'll try to figure out how we can use them.
All right. Back to wrap up our Ask the Mayor program today in just a moment. About 9 minutes left with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Made some. The council affirmed your reappointments to the Housing Authority Board. I was wondering, as far as boards and commissions, any open spots that you know of at this point?
We do have one open. Might have a couple open, but I know the one that I know for sure is Beatrice Plus. Nice thing about that is a great opportunity if you want to get involved with a committee from the city that's kind of a coveted spot, because what you're really doing is giving away money. And so you don't have a lot of decisions to make other than how's the best way to spend the Beatrice Plus money, which is basically people who have donated their money on the bill that gets rounded up. A lot of good projects across the city have come out of Beatrice Plus. So, get a hold of the city. I think there might be a way online to send us an email. Call us, whatever it would take. But if you're interested in that position, it's one that meets quarterly, so it's not a lot of time, but it is a big help to the community, and it's no stress. You're giving away money.
Yeah. Well, and if you have, say, for instance, an $80, 30-cent utility bill, basically 70 cents, you round it up, that
Correct.
Goes to that. And I was wondering, now I haven't checked for a long time, do you know what the balance is in that, or how much that? It's a small amount each bill, but that tends to add up over time.
I would think right now, I'd have to look it up, so don't hold me to this, but I think it's probably somewhere between the $10,000 and $15,000. Yeah. I think the grants are up to $10,000. And they've helped out the parks, they've helped out projects. There's just been a good way. I mean, I'm not sure who instituted that way back when, but it really does help the community, and all the money does go back to the community for projects that are open to the community.
Yeah. I was going to say, maybe if Tobias or Hannah are listening, maybe they would text us what the balance is.
Yeah,
No,
there you go.
No, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but sometimes that happens.
I'll see if I can bring that next time.
That'd be interesting to see, because I know I round mine up, and I imagine a lot of people do. Even dollar amounts are a lot easier to track anyway.
They are. I do that too, because I know it goes to a good cause.
Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier in the program the revenue bond issue, which was formalized by ordinance this week for utility projects, equipment. That is not funded by general tax money or property tax. That's by user fees instead.
That is there's general obligation bonds, which is taxpayer money, and there's revenue bonds, which are the money that's generated from the electric or the sanitation or water or sewer or those type of things. And the $5 million is going to go for, I think, 2 vac trucks. And then, since we own our own power company, we need to make sure as BPW, the electric side of the house, needs to make sure that you continue to upgrade your substations and those type of things. And I think about $4 million going for substation upgrades.
Yeah. And I think Pat's crews have been working on replacing some transmission line too. I think one is in Center Street or around that
somewhere
area.
In there, yeah.
Kind of on West Court, and see them out there once in a while. But there are, I assume, other places too where you just have to upgrade for higher capacity or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and infrastructure is one of those things like we've talked about. You don't see it, but you know that it works when you hit the light switch and you flush the toilet and, just water the yard. That infrastructure is getting to you, but it's all underground or above, and you don't really think about it. But I can tell you that we do. We all of the department heads are planning again that 8-year out about, what water lines might need to be replaced, what transmission lines need to be done, transformers. I mean, they're not inexpensive. So on the other side of the coin, it's great that we own those because, as we continue down the road of electricity, it's been a long time since we've had to raise rates. And spreading this bond over, I think, 10 years.
I think that was it, yeah.
This allows us to cash manage as we go through that.
Electric heat, especially on mornings of 14 below, is very important.
Exactly.
You wouldn't want to be without utilities
No.
today if you could avoid it. So, and there have been times in the past where ice storms have knocked out power for a few days, and those are difficult situations.
Yeah,
so.
and one of the things that I think is really kind of cool about, again, Nebraska is if there is a big ice storm or there is a big winter or tornado storm, there's a lot of mutual aid. I know our guys will go over to Iowa and help, and if something happens here, we know that our friends that we've helped will be here to rebuild our lines here.
One last thing, maybe to just briefly touch on today, airport improvements coming up, likely, or trying to start that in late March, and that involves the apron project out there where you no longer, according to the FAA, can wheel a plane straight onto a runway. They want you to have a parallel taxiway, basically, and then get on the runway.
Yep.
Then you have the apron, and the fuel islands will be relocated just off that, and they'll be brought from, underground to above ground, if I remember right.
I think that's exactly right, yes.
Yeah. Big project out there.
Big projects. Nice thing about it is a lot of that is federal grant dollars. That's and with a 10% match or 20% match, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a big project. As I've said before, it's a great asset that we have at the airport that we have, and Dennis Schmidt does a great job of managing everything that's going on out there. And if I'm not mistaken, we just rented a hangar to a commercial business that's going to fly in and out of Beatrice.
That is another part of that is addition of hangars at some point out there
Yes.
to hangar space. So.
We got some appropriation funds from Senator Fisher, and we're going to be able to hopefully get those done here this summer.
Just about every day, and where I live, of course, it's kind of in line with one of the runways out there, but you see some pretty sizable aircraft on a daily basis for commerce or, CEOs, the management coming in. So probably quite an impact business-wise.
It is. Yeah. It is. And from economic development, it's one of the things that when your corporate headquarters aren't in the city of Beatrice and you have a nice, Exmark would be one. It's great to have the ability to fly in and out of Beatrice. And I always contend that it may be easier to fly in and out of Beatrice than Lincoln or Omaha.
Yeah. Their revenue sources, too, are from fuel sales, lease income. So it's not really a big property tax bite.
It's a very small property tax bite. The land around it that we own is leased out for farming, so there's some income generated there. So it's a really, really nice airport and a very good, strong asset for the city.
The decision to pull it under the city's overall budget rather than a separate airport authority to an airport advisory situation now. Looking back at that, how has that worked out? You're approaching another 2-year budget cycle, and how has that worked out?
It's been very positive. I think the advisory committee does a really good job. Dennis Schmidt does a really good job. But at the end of the day, I think it gives us some opportunities, grant-wise and dollar-wise, to really keep the airport in the best shape possible.
And for those businesses that fly in, it keeps you from flying to somewhere 40 miles away and driving down or whatever.
That is exactly right.
So that's good. So, anything else today? What's coming up on the radar? We don't have a council meeting.
We don't.
Next, we don't have a work session at the end of this month.
No.
So the next one will be March, is it 3rd?
17th.
Oh, that's right. It'll be March 3rd.
March 3rd will be the next city council meeting.
Okay.
Work session, if we have one, will be the 17th.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you plan one? Is there one coming up?
I don't know. It's either going to be a discussion or a work session. I'm not sure which. A couple of things on our radar screen is we did have a retreat, and we do develop some strategic planning opportunities, and we need to share those with the city council. I mean, they were there, but now the recap of that, we need to do that. So that'll either be a discussion item or a work session. So we'll... And I think there's a couple other little things there.
Always plenty of things to address
we do.
As you go through a typical year. So, Mayor, thanks for being with us again.
All right. Thank you, Doug.